In the 1920s, as the brand new Soviet Union was clawing its way out of the ashes of revolution, one of the strangest and most chilling scientific quests in history got underway. You might think you've heard all the wild stories from that era, but have you heard the one about the state-funded attempt to create a human-ape hybrid? The story that's been told for decades is that Joseph Stalin himself ordered an army of them. But is that what really happened? The truth behind the myth of Stalin's Ape-Man army is less about super soldiers and much more about one scientist's obsessive, ethically bankrupt mission to use science to destroy religion. It sounds like something ripped straight from a comic book. An army of creatures with the raw strength of an ape, but the mind of a human. Unflinching, powerful, and totally obedient. For years, the legend has been that Stalin wanted this exact thing to secure the future of his Soviet empire. But this story is a perfect example of how a bizarre, disturbing truth can get twisted into an even more sensational myth.
Before we continue, please like and subscribe to this channel so you won't miss any historical facts and mysteries we upload here.
This isn't really a story about a secret military plot. It's about a regime at war with faith and a brilliant scientist who offered them the ultimate weapon: the new Soviet man. To understand how an idea this wild ever got funding, you have to go back to the 1920s. The Russian Revolution was over. The Bolsheviks were in charge, and their goal wasn't just to change a government, but to completely reforge humanity itself. They had a vision for a new Soviet man, a person free from the old world chains of faith, family, and property, who was totally devoted to the communist state. A huge part of this was an all-out war on religion. The Bolshevik government was aggressively atheistic, seeing religious belief as a poison holding back human progress. Their greatest weapon in this fight? Science. They believed that if science could explain everything in the natural world, there would be no room left for God. Top-ranking Bolsheviks were ready to fund some truly radical ideas to prove their point. In this intense new world, the lines between scientific discovery and political goals basically disappeared, and that's where our scientist saw his big chance. A scientist's crusade. The man at the center of all this was Ilya Ivanov. Now, Ivanov was no mad scientist cackling in a basement. He was a world-renowned biologist, famous for his pioneering work in artificial insemination. He'd already accomplished incredible things, creating animal hybrids like the zebroid, a cross between a zebra and a horse. He was a master of his craft, respected both in and out of Russia. But Ivanov had a much bigger and far more controversial goal. As a fierce believer in Darwin's theory of evolution, he thought he had found a way to prove it beyond all doubt. He reasoned that if he could crossbreed a human and an ape, it would be the ultimate proof of our animal origins, striking a final, fatal blow against religious creation stories. So, in 1924, he pitched his wild idea to the Soviet government. He wanted to go to Africa and create a human-ape hybrid. He framed it perfectly for their anti-religious agenda. This wasn't just a scientific curiosity, it was a political statement. The government, hungry for any tool to promote state-sponsored atheism, agreed. The Academy of Sciences gave the project its blessing and a significant budget. While the press would later call him the Red Frankenstein, at the time, he was seen as a bold, if divisive, figure in Soviet science. The Grim Safari. In 1926, Ivanov showed up at a primate research station in French Guinea, West Africa. His mission was simple: capture female chimpanzees and artificially inseminate them with human sperm. The reality, though, was a mess from the start. Ivanov and his son couldn't catch enough healthy apes. His insemination attempts were fruitless. Every single one failed. Frustrated but not defeated, Ivanov's project took an even darker turn. If he couldn't get female apes pregnant, he'd try it the other way around. His new plan was to inseminate human women in Africa with ape sperm. While he initially looked for volunteers, some reports indicate he was willing to proceed without their full knowledge or consent, under the guise of a medical exam. Thankfully, this horrifying idea was stopped in its tracks by the local French governor, who flatly refused to allow it. The expedition was a complete disaster. Ivanov had failed to produce a single hybrid and revealed a terrifying lack of ethics. But he wasn't done yet. He believed the problem wasn't his theory, but his location. He needed a controlled environment. He needed to bring the apes home. The experiment comes home. After the fiasco in Africa, Ivanov managed to ship his few surviving apes to a new primate center in Sukhumi, a city on the Black Sea coast in the Soviet Republic of Georgia. The plan was now to find Soviet women who would volunteer to carry a hybrid child. This is where the story often gets exaggerated, with tales of women lining up for the experiment. The truth, found in Soviet archives, is much smaller and sadder. At least one woman, known only as G, did volunteer, writing to the commission and offering her body for the sake of science. But before any procedure could be attempted on G or anyone else, the project's last hope vanished. The last of Ivanov's healthy, mature apes, an orangutan named Tarzan, died of a brain hemorrhage. The project had been nothing but a string of failures. In reality, Ivanov never came close to creating a hybrid pregnancy. The scientific and logistical hurdles were just too high. The grand experiment to forge a new kind of being ended not with a bang, but with the quiet death of a lone ape in a cage. The downfall and the myth. With his apes gone and zero results to show for the government's money, Ivanov's career was over. Plus, the political climate in the Soviet Union was changing. During Stalin's Great Purge, which targeted anyone seen as an enemy of the state, scientists weren't safe. In 1930, Ivanov was arrested. He wasn't arrested for his bizarre experiments, but as part of a much wider political cleansing of intellectuals. He was exiled to Kazakhstan and died there from a stroke just 2 years later. For decades, his work was mostly a forgotten, strange footnote in Soviet history. But after the fall of the Soviet Union, as archives opened up, the story re-emerged and the myth began to grow. The tale morphed from a failed, ethically nightmarish science experiment into a secret military program. The idea that Stalin had personally ordered an army of ape-human super soldiers was born. This version of the story is powerful propaganda, blending the very real horror of Ivanov's work with the global fear of Stalin's brutal regime. But there's just no credible evidence to support it. The project was funded by scientific branches of the government, not the military. And Ivanov's stated goal was always ideological, to stick it to religion. It was never a top-secret military project. It was a politically charged scientific quest that spiraled completely out of control. The story of Ilya Ivanov is a wild cautionary tale, but it's far from the only strange story to come out of the 20th century. The collision of science, ambition, and power has created some of history's most unsettling chapters. If you want to explore more of these historical rabbit holes, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And let us know in the comments what piece of bizarre history we should dig into next. In the end, the hunt for a human-ape hybrid wasn't a secret military plot that almost gave us a real-life Planet of the Apes. It was a series of embarrassing failures, driven by a zealous scientist who found support in a regime that wanted to turn science into a weapon against faith. The project is a chilling reminder of what happens when scientific ambition is completely disconnected from ethics, and when ideology demands that science deliver not truth, but ammunition. It forces us to ask a timeless and terrifying question. In the name of progress, how far is too far?